Welcome to ICEF Monitor. I'm sitting here with Mark Winkler, the founder and CEO of Media Touristik AG from Switzerland. Thank you for coming, Mark.
Yeah, I started my agency about 30 years ago, and we are sending students around the world. The Swiss are really price sensitive. I think this is one issue you should always keep in mind. So quality, price is very important, and the Swiss are champions in taking exams. So if you've got an English language school and don't offer Cambridge exams, you don't get Swiss.
And let's talk about the neighboring countries a little bit. Let's talk about Germany and French and Italian. Are there different strategies applied to each of these countries?
Completely different. Those are completely different markets, because the Swiss market is, I would say, a unique market, because Swiss, it's quite an old custom to go abroad and study a language. And if you look at the Swiss customers, most of them don't have a Abitur or Matura. They are workmen, they are work in a hotel, they might be hairdressers or whatever. So in Switzerland, everybody goes abroad and does a language course. It's not just the elite or people from university. It's really everybody who does a language course abroad.
So what do language schools have to keep in mind when they're trying to attract this specific profile of students?
As I said, it's especially that they want to take exams, and that's one thing. And the other thing is the Swiss are very demanding clients, because most of the Swiss, they pay for themselves. So that means not the parents who pay their stay, they pay, they work hard, and then they go abroad. And if the school starts at 9 o'clock, the Swiss want that the school starts at 9 o'clock and not at 9:15. And if it ends at 1 o'clock, they want to stay there till 1 o'clock, not till 12:45, compared to some other countries who don't really care about those things.
So am I assuming it right that then the Swiss are more interested in really learning the language instead of the activities which a lot of times go around with a language course?
Yeah, that's exactly. The Swiss, if they go abroad and they pay for a language course, they really want to learn a language. In Switzerland, if you go to school, you don't pay to go to school. There are government schools.
So let's talk about the Swiss population. I think it's about 8 million, and almost a quarter roughly has a foreign background. Are there similarities, differences when they want to go study abroad?
I think that's a big issue at the time. In Switzerland, as you said, we have about 23% immigrants, and for those immigrants, many are coming from Albania, Croatia, Serbia, Turkey. They're not used to go abroad for a language course, and they're immigrants coming into Switzerland. They first have to learn French, they have to learn German, they have to learn Italian, whatever. And so it's not their custom to go abroad again. And also, if they go abroad, they might go back in their country where they're coming from, and not to Australia or to Costa Rica or whatever.
So in Switzerland you have a German-speaking population, you have a French-speaking population, you have an Italian-speaking population. Can you approach them all with one marketing strategy, or do you have to have 3 marketing strategies, or how does that work?
First of all, I think you can't approach them with the same strategy. And also, most of the agencies, they are, let's say the big agencies, are either in the French part or in the German part. Especially the Italian part is such a small part. So we're talking about 8% of the Swiss are living in the Italian part. So and also the Italian language is quite far away for most of the people. So in the Swiss-German part, many people speak French and German, because French is the second language we have to learn, or the first foreign language you have to learn at school. And so that means most of the Swiss in the German part speak a little bit of French. The same is in the French part. Most of the people there speak a little bit of German. So the needs are similar. The French-speaking people, they need to learn German, so that means they go either to Germany or Austria. And the Swiss Germans, they need to learn French, so that means they're going either to the Swiss Romandie or they're going to France or whatever. And but the marketing strategy is actually similar, because the biggest need all of us have, the Swiss Italians, the Swiss French, the Swiss Germans, is the English language, and so there is not a big difference in the marketing strategy.
So you couldn't say, for example, let's say the German part is more, it's better to approach them via internet, and the French part more by brochures, let's say.
No. Those marketing strategies are really similar. The big problem we have is that we have to publish everything in 2 or 3 languages. So that means if we have a homepage, we have to have it in German, we have to have it in French, we might to have it in Italian and whatever. And this is quite costly, actually. If you look at an agency in Germany, if they publish in German, that's fine, that's okay. They don't need a second publication. Or we have to print 2 catalogs, one in German and one in French.
So what are the core factors influencing Swiss students when they choose their destination?
I think it's a big reason is word of mouth, and it's fashion. So we had some trends, like in the 30 years ago, people went to Bournemouth. Bournemouth was really the trendy place. And then in the 90s, it was San Diego. So all the Swiss wanted to go to San Diego. And then 2000 till about 2008, everybody went to Perth. So Perth was the big destination. And now the big trend is Hawaii, for example. So it's, on one hand, it's trend, and on the other hand, it's also, of course, cost of living and the exchange rate of our currency. And if we look at the time, is 10 years ago, Australia was number 2. I'm talking about the English language. England is always number 1, but Australia was number 2. So I think in 1 year there were 4,000 or 5,000 Swiss were in Australia for a language course. But at the time it's Australia is number 3, but the US is number 2, because the cost of living are quite high in Australia, and the exchange rate for the dollar is great for the Swiss. So it depends on the exchange rate. It depends on the fashion, on the time. So there are different reasons why people decide going either to Australia or US or Canada or whatever.
And let's talk about the programs Swiss students are taking. Am I right that there's a lot of internships recently?
Internships are popular, but not as popular, and especially for like for Australia, we can't get the right visa to do the internships. But what's getting really popular is volunteering. Especially people who go to gymnasium and make their matura, and the year before they go to university, they like to do something, and many of those have the idea that their language, they speak quite a good language, so they want to go do something special, going to India, going to Nepal, going to South Africa or whatever, and working with children, with older people, and whatever they can do in a volunteering program.
So you're recommending that education providers or service institutions should consider that and offer these kind of programs?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Then many times there is also a combination of internship and language course, especially for the Spanish language. So people go to Costa Rica, they follow a language course for 6 weeks, and then they go to a turtle breeding station for another 6 weeks and help them and do a job there. It's different if they go to Vietnam, or it's different if they go to Nepal or India, because they don't go for the language, they really go for the volunteering. And I think those are really different programs, because in language travel, you can make money as an agent. In volunteering, it's a lot of work, and you don't make much money on those programs.
But you're still offering them.
You have to, because it's part of the game, part of the products you have to offer, because people are looking for volunteering programs.
That was the first part of ICEF Monitor. Stay tuned for part 2.